Let's dive into one of the most powerful and enduring legends in all of Japanese history. It's a story that has resonated for centuries, a true tale of honor, of vengeance, and of the ultimate sacrifice. This story really gets to the heart of the samurai code, Bushido. This is the legend of the 47 Ronin, cheerfully about to lay down our lives. Just think about those words for a second. That's not something you hear every day. These aren't the words of crazed fanatics. They're the words of warriors, men bound by an oath so powerful it transcended life itself. So what on earth could drive 47 men to not just accept death, but to embrace it as the price of their mission? Well, to get that, we have to go back to the moment their world completely fell apart. You see, this whole epic story, it doesn't start with a clashing of swords on a battlefield. It starts with an insult, a single act of profound disrespect deep within the halls of power that would kick off a chain of events that is as tragic as it is legendary. Now, the location here is absolutely crucial. The shogun's palace. This wasn't just any old building. It was the center of the entire government, a place where the rules of decorum were absolute law. I mean, to even draw a weapon there was an unthinkable, unforgivable crime. But Lord Asano was provoked, pushed beyond his breaking point, and he did just that. The consequence was swift, and it was final. He was ordered to commit seppuku, ritual suicide. And just like that, his life was over, and his entire clan was plunged into disgrace. So with Lord Asano gone, what happens to his hundreds of loyal samurai? They were instantly cast adrift. They became Ronin, literally wavemen or masterless samurai. Now, for a warrior whose entire identity, their whole reason for being, was tied to serving their lord, this was a fate often considered worse than death. They lost everything: their income, their social status, and most critically, their very purpose. They were men without honor, just drifting. But for a small, dedicated few, this wasn't the end of the story, not even close. For them, it was the beginning of a new, all-consuming mission. In the face of total dishonor, they chose to forge a new purpose for themselves, a secret pact that was sealed in the shadow of their master's death. Out of all the hundreds of samurai who had served Lord Asano, a core group of just 47 bound themselves together. And think about this group. Their ages spanned entire generations. You had a wise old warrior of 77, and on the other end, a boy who was just 16. But age didn't matter. They were all united by one single, unbreakable resolve. And that resolve was laser-focused on one objective. Their leader was Oishi Chronosuke, who had been Lord Asano's most trusted advisor. Under his guidance, they swore a secret blood oath. They would avenge their master by taking the life of the man who had caused his downfall, the high official Kirakatsuke Nosuke. And you have to understand, this was about so much more than just simple revenge. This was about restoring the honor of their fallen lord and their entire clan, no matter what it cost them. But this wasn't going to be some hot-headed, rash attack. No way. Kira fully expected some kind of retaliation, so he was on high alert. To have any chance of succeeding, the Ronin knew they had to become masters of patience, masters of deception. They had to put on a performance so convincing that it would fool not only their enemy, but the entire world into believing the threat was gone. This timeline really shows you their incredible discipline. They didn't just strike in a fit of rage a week later. They waited for almost 2 full years. Can you even imagine the mental fortitude that takes? For 21 months, they lived a lie. Every single day was a test of their loyalty, a part of this carefully orchestrated play designed to do one thing: convince Kira's spies that the idea of vengeance had died along with their master. And the lengths they went to, it's just astonishing. Oishi, their leader, went so far as to divorce his beloved wife and throw himself into the pleasure districts, making himself appear to be a broken, drunken disgrace. The others took up trades as simple merchants and carpenters, blending in. And then there's this. In maybe the most incredible act of dedication, one of the Ronin actually married the daughter of the man who designed Kira's mansion, all to get his hands on the building's floor plans. Every move they made was a calculated piece in a very long, very patient game. And then, after almost 2 years of waiting, of playing their parts to perfection, the time was finally right. Kira's spies had been recalled. His guard was down. A heavy winter snow was falling over the city. The moment they had sacrificed absolutely everything for had, at long last, arrived. Under the cover of that thick, muffling snow, they gathered one last time. They were armed with weapons they had smuggled in, and they were guided by those priceless floor plans. They launched a perfectly coordinated assault on Kira's mansion. The fighting was fierce, but their purpose was absolute. They fought their way through his guards, found him hiding in a storeroom, and they fulfilled the vow that had been their entire reason for living for 2 long years. They took his head. But they didn't flee. They didn't just scatter into the night. Their duty wasn't finished. Carrying the head of their enemy, the 47 men marched in a solemn, quiet procession right across the capital city of Edo. They were headed to the Sengakuji Temple, where their master was buried. This wasn't a victory parade. This was the final, grim, and sacred chapter of their duty. When they arrived at the temple, their very first act was one of ritual purification. They found a small well, and there they washed the blood and the dirt from Kira's head, preparing it as a worthy offering to their master's spirit. That very well is still there today, and this inscription serves as a powerful, chilling reminder of just how solemn and serious their actions were. You see, for the Ronin, killing Kira wasn't the end of their duty. The true climax of their story, the act that would cement their legend forever, was the sacrifice that they knew had to follow. They knew the law of the shogun. They had committed murder, and a price would have to be paid. There, at Lord Asano's grave, they laid down the head of his enemy. But they also laid down a document, a kind of manifesto, really, explaining and justifying what they had done. They weren't common criminals, and they wanted to make that clear. They were men of honor who had acted according to the code of Bushido, and they wanted the world to understand exactly why they did what they did. What is truly unbelievable is the sheer bureaucratic coldness of what happened next. After the Ronin left, the temple priests actually returned the head to Kira's family, and in exchange, they were given this receipt. Item, 1 head. It's just an incredible document. It's such a stark, bizarre contrast between the passionate, bloody act of vengeance and the formal, orderly procedures of their society. So after completing their mission, the Ronin just calmly surrendered to the authorities. They had knowingly, willingly broken the shogun's law, and the sentence was death. But in a sign of respect for their loyalty and their adherence to the samurai code, they were not executed like common criminals. No, they were granted the highest honor a condemned samurai could ever receive, the right to die by their own hand, by committing seppuku. This wasn't seen as a punishment. It was a final act of will, of control, of honor. And so every single one of them, from the old veteran all the way down to the teenage boy, met their end with dignity. They had lived by the code, and now they would die by it. Their mission was finally complete. Their master's honor was restored, and their own loyalty had been proven beyond any shadow of a doubt. 47 men, all bound by a single oath, who gave up their lives, their families, their entire futures for one single purpose: loyalty. To this very day, you can go and see their graves. They are buried side by side, right next to their lord, at the Sengakuji Temple, a national shrine and an enduring, powerful symbol of sacrifice and honor. Which leaves us with the question that people have debated for centuries. How should we look at this story? Was this the ultimate expression of loyalty and duty, the perfect example of the Bushido code in action? Or was it a heartbreaking tragedy, a story about men who were trapped by a rigid system of honor that, in the end, demanded their lives? The answer, well, it probably isn't simple. It's tangled up in a legend that continues to fascinate and move us, even today.